Do you regret ever getting involved in?
I didn't have a choice. It got bad when I was about 15 years old because when I did MTV Cribs, the day that I had to go show off that house, my mom and my dad told me, we're getting a divorce, but you still have to go do this. I had to go show off all the stuff my whole life that was going to be taken.
Horrifying claims about what Doody did to Aaron Carter have surfaced, and it appears that this has increased Doody's legal team's confidence that their client will lose.
All partied with Diddy. It's hard for me to truly get invested in what's happening to Liam Payne right now because I haven't gotten over what happened to Nick. Nick's brother, Aaron Carter.
Right.
A lot of people keep forgetting Aaron Carter was begging for help, begging for independent financing, begging for security.
It is said that Aaron died from drowning in his bathtub back in 2022, but many are skeptical. How could a person possibly drown in their own bathtub? The thing is, there are rumors that Aaron Carter was about to bite the bullet and expose Diddy's freak-offs 3 years ago, but he was taken out before he could do that. We will talk more about that later. Now though, reckoning has come for Diddy, with new people taking the stand and talking about his alleged crimes.
The first week of the testimony in the sex trafficking trial against Sean Combs ended with a former member of one of Combs' musical groups on the witness stand. Dawn Richard says that she saw Combs attack Cassie Ventura in 2009. Richard is suing Combs in federal court, accusing him of sexual assault and battery. She'll be back on the witness stand on Monday. Richard's civil lawsuit is still pending. Does that impact how these attorneys approach her if they try to color this as some way of I guess, supporting her civil case? How does that difference impact the approach to these witnesses?
I think that can be argued either way. For instance, where the fact that Ms. Ventura's case, her civil case is already settled and the money's already been received, to me, that doesn't count against her. Perhaps it counts to her credibility because she chose to participate in the criminal trial anyway. However, where Ms. Richard is concerned, the fact that she is participating when, frankly, a criminal conviction may harm her ability to recover. It may harm Mr. Combs' ability to have the finances, the funding to be able to pay any recovery. So there are risks either way. I just think that as people are watching, they need to remember trials involve humans and humans are messy. So you don't have any purity tests in terms of your witness is on the stand and has never done anything wrong, or your defendant is on the stand and has never done anything right. There's a lot going on both sides, and it really is up to the jury to ferret that out as long as they are given the right facts and the proper...
Rumors suggest that Aaron Carter was on the verge of exposing Dottie's misdeeds 3 years ago, but circumstances intervened before he could do so. We will talk more about that later. However, with new people testifying about his alleged crimes, it is now time for Dottie to face the consequences. It is said that Aaron died by drowning in his bathtub in 2022, but many people are skeptical about how someone could drown in their own bathtub.
His best friend also took the stand.
Dawn Richard said, you've met with government prosecutors 8 times over the last year and a half. And over the course of those 8 meetings, you've changed your story at least 4 times when it comes to multiple incidents. And Richard acknowledged that her story has changed. And she said that it's really just about her memory, that she tried to block all of these things out, and that she's been trying to remember, and all of these meetings with prosecutors has helped her. But it was not good for her that her story has changed so many times. And then they also doubled down on the fact that she has filed her own civil suit seeking money from Combs.
Chloe, we know Cassie Ventura's former best friend is also testifying today. What has she said so far?
So her name is Carrie Gordon, and when Cassie Ventura was on the stand last week, she talked a lot about this friend of hers that witnessed a lot of the abuse, and that this was someone that she confided in. And Miss Gordon, she's already taken the stand for a few hours. Right now they're on a lunch break, and she's expected to return this afternoon. And she said, look, I don't really even want to be here. I was given a subpoena. I'm forced to be here to testify. I haven't spoken to Combs or Miss Ventura since 2018, and that's because
Diddy is facing some grave allegations. According to the government, he ran a covert organization that engaged in unlawful activities like moving people between states, hiding money, abusing his notoriety and power for evil, and attacking his ex. Now the entire country is watching closely after shocking revelations in just 1 week. Don Richards, one of Daisy's staff members and Cassie's best friend, also spoke up.
Legal analyst Joey Jackson. Josh, let me start with you. What do these raids by federal agents in multiple locations tell you about the seriousness of this investigation?
Yeah, Wolf, a very significant development here, seeing this law enforcement action taking place. I'll point out, just to be clear at the outset, we don't know that Sean Diddy Combs himself is the subject or target of a federal investigation. So it's just worth pointing that out at this hour. But what we do know is that 2 properties associated with him, we saw the feds descend on those properties. We saw on aerial footage, federal agents both here in the Los Angeles area as well as in Miami at those residences. Now, the Department of Homeland Security, their what's called HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, gave CNN a statement. I'll read you part of that when asked about what this activity is. They say that earlier today, HSI New York executed law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation with assistance from HSI Los Angeles, HSI Miami, and our local law enforcement partners. That is it, confirming that they are conducting what they're deeming law enforcement action, which could indicate search warrants being conducted there, could indicate arrests being conducted. We just don't know at this hour specifically what that law enforcement action is. It is worth pointing out, though, that Combs himself obviously has faced significant legal woes in recent months. I'll give you just the highlights of what actually occurred in November. He was sued for rape and abuse by a former partner. That lawsuit was then settled very quickly, but in December, he faced sexual assault allegations in a complaint filed in the Southern District of New York. The suit was brought by a woman referred to as Jane Doe, who said that she was 17 at the time when these allegations took place back in 2000.
The FBI presented the evidence they found in his homes, and Doody's lawyers are vehemently retaliating.
Had collected, at least in part. We also learned the charges that Diddy faced: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. And again, Diddy's pleaded not guilty and denies those allegations. But this indictment, this OG indictment, which by the way, there's been a couple of superseding ones, adding a couple of charges here and there. Anyway, going back to the holy grail of it all, the original indictment, that's where we learned about what was collected, including all of that lube and baby oil. And all of this leads us straight back to the freak-offs and the civil cases that preceded the federal search warrants and then eventually the indictment. So Cassie, I know I talk about Cassie all the time, but we wouldn't be here were it not for Cassie. And Cassie's lawsuit is the one that first mentioned freak-offs. We heard about them again from Lil Rod. We've seen them in multiple different civil suits now, and additionally in the federal indictment. And here's how the Fed specifically explained freak-offs, quote, "Freak-offs were elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded." Now, they also listed a couple of items that were used during these freak-offs, at least according to the Feds. They said that there were controlled substances used, and this was specifically to allegedly keep the victims obedient and compliant. The Feds also state that during these freak-off situations, recording devices were used. Now, sometimes the people involved in the freak-offs, allegedly, didn't know that they were being recorded. And then other times, Diddy and his team, allegedly, would use these recordings as revenge and say, hey, if you come forward and report this to anyone, we've got this really embarrassing video. Why would you do that? So that's an allegation too. The Feds also say that IV fluids were used in all of this, specifically because the people involved in the freak-offs had to recover from physical exertion and
This trial is about how money and influence can be used dangerously, not simply about one man. According to the government, Dylan didn't work alone. Rather, they think he led a team of people who assisted him in committing crimes like drug trafficking, evading authorities, and hiding money. When federal authorities raided Doody's homes, in Miami and Los Angeles, they took laptops, hard drives, cash, and even classified data, making the case much more severe. This is not a minor case. The federal government's involvement includes the FBI, the IRS,
On Twitter, and I see people saying, "You look like you have AIDS, you should go die." I don't understand how I dedicated 22 years of my life to my fans, and now they turn on me.
In court, one witness said Aaron had tried to warn people about what was going on behind the scenes. The lawyers didn't say Diddy had anything to do with Aaron's death, with the mysterious circumstances of his death making plausible.
The mother of singer Aaron Carter doesn't believe he died from a drug overdose and wants his death investigated further. I'm Anjanette Levy, and welcome back to Sidebar here on Law and Crime. Aaron Carter was found dead in a bathtub in his home in Los Angeles last November. Since that time, TMZ has reported the LA County coroner did not find water in his lungs, meaning he didn't drown. Carter's mother, Jane Schneck, posted photos on Facebook that show the bathroom where her son was found. She wrote on Facebook, "Because of my son's mental illness and prescription drug issues, they, the cops, just wanted it to be something easy that they didn't have the time or inclination to address." Schneck wants a more thorough investigation. She wrote that her son was receiving threats from many people, and she believes there were people out there who wanted to harm him. So joining me to discuss this issue and the death of Aaron Carter is Joseph Scott Morgan. He's a forensic death investigator and also the host of the Body Bags podcast. Joseph, welcome back to Sidebar. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Anjanette. Good to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about Aaron Carter's death. He was found in a bathtub in his home. We see from these photographs that there was some discoloration in the water. I have a feeling that was probably from his body releasing fluids following his death. So what can we glean thus far, aside from the fact that he didn't drown? They didn't find water in his lungs, according to this report by TMZ.
Well, if you're talking about the death investigation itself, we can glean the fact that they haven't come back with toxicology results yet. So at this point, and as you know, medical examiners and coroners are, I don't want to use the term notorious, but it takes time for these things to be fully realized because these tests take time. You don't, in a death investigation, you don't want things hurried up. And it seems as though some parties that are involved in this case want it sped up. And that's the most dangerous.
Are not merely old rumors. The charges are currently being heard by actual judges, solicitors, and witnesses, some of whom are beginning to speak. One unexpected event in week 1 was when the name of singer Aaron Carter was mentioned in court. Prior to his death in 2022, Carter had discussed issues in the music business and shared videos and tweets claiming that influential people were attempting to intimidate or control him and that he had no control.
Thousands? I mean, and I'm not really sure what the baby oil has to do with anything. I don't know where the number 1,000 came.
Baby oil, more than 1,000 bottles altogether.
He has been ready to defend this case since he first found out about this case.
Diddy's case causing online chatter over the shocking discovery. The rapper's attorney telling all to TMZ as the outlet dives deep into the ongoing trial in their documentary, The Downfall of Diddy, The Indictment, streaming on Tubi.
They're essentially saying it's a lubricant for an orgy.
I guess. I don't know what you need 1,000. One bottle of baby oil goes a long way. I don't know what you need 1,000 for.
Yeah, it's the number of bottles going viral on social media, with Diddy's longtime nemesis, 50 Cent, dropping this meme on X. Meanwhile, Diddy's defense team offers this explanation.
I mean, he has a big house he buys in bulk. I think they have Costco's in every place where he has a home. I mean, have you sat in a parking lot of a Costco and see what people walk out of there with?
TMZ reached out to Costco. Their rep says none of their U.S. locations carry baby oil.
He believes he's innocent. I believe he's innocent. And we're going to fight this case with all of our might until we don't have to fight any longer. We're not giving up by a long shot. I told Mr. Combs I'm going to try and get his case to trial as quickly as possible. I don't think it was 1,000. Let's just say it's a lot, okay?
Let's discuss some of the details with Joey Jackson. He's a CNN legal analyst, a former prosecutor as well. Joey, thanks so much for being with us. This is Sean Combs' third try to get out on bail. Do you think he has a better chance this time around?
So he may, Bar. It's good to be with you, and here's why. You heard Elizabeth reference the issue of the reporting, and here's why it's significant in terms of its manipulation. Just to reset, the Critical to his denial on bail were really two factors. The one factor related to him being a danger to the community. The other factor being how he would potentially obstruct witnesses. Now, critical in the prosecutor's arguments at those previous hearings was the fact that there's this tape that everyone has seen, and they said, prosecutors did, that tape was in the context of a freak-off. It was in the context of sex trafficking. It was in the context of him being violent as it related to that count in the indictment against Miss Ventura, right, who's referred to as victim one. But here now comes the defense saying, hey, by the way, the prosecution has misled you, court. This had nothing to do with a freak-off, as is alleged, which were the parties that he was allegedly having, that is P. Diddy, with all of these instances going on with coerced sexual activity, etc., had nothing to do with that. It also had nothing to do with sex trafficking. This was a domestic dispute. Now, it doesn't make the violence in the tape or any more tenable, right? Violence is violence, it shouldn't happen, but it gives it context. Now, when you get down to the manipulation of the tape, the reordering of the tape, did you mislead the court? If they did, that's a factual question, a judge won't be too happy. Second brief point, and that is, they're also arguing, the defense team, that there's the issue concerning his ability to prepare and be ready for trial. If you're going through and rummaging through his notes and other records that are attorney-client privileged and peeping at them and looking at them and using them against them, how could...
Testified in court that Aaron had attempted to alert people to what was happening behind the scenes, but the attorneys denied that Dylan was involved in his demise, citing the enigmatic circumstances of his passing as evidence.
Confirmed that Diddy was truly deeply evil. The evidence was right there. It was the final piece of the puzzle, revealing that Diddy had spent his entire life taking advantage of others to the point where his music empire was nothing but a front for his sick obsessions. At the same time, though, Diddy's arrest somehow created a lot more questions than it answered. We all knew he was a bad guy, don't get me wrong, but now we're realizing that it went so much deeper, with Diddy starting to look like his sick, disturbing crimes might rival those of Jeffrey Epstein or Harvey Weinstein. Not just one bad actor, but instead the leader of a criminal operation carrying out revolting abuse and exploitation. And so now, there are even more questions than there were before. How did Diddy get away with it for so long? What were the full extent of his crimes? But even more sinister, who knew about his empire of abuse and didn't tell? Who, out of his massive network of celebrity friends and powerful contacts, was joining in? The size and scope of Diddy's alleged crimes, combined with his control over the industry, implies a much larger web of deception and evil than most of us could have ever imagined before. It's to the point where somehow his arrest, finally putting a monster behind bars, opens more doors than it closed. So what and who was Diddy hiding? If you let Diddy tell the story of his own life, he's a hero. He spent massive amounts of resources and time throughout his career creating good optics for himself. Even as recently as 2021, one of the last magazine profiles that was ever done on him before his arrest tells us a lot about how Diddy wanted people to see him and what he thinks of himself. During that 2021 interview with Vanity Fair called With Love, Sean Combs, he talked about his new lifelong purpose that was literally sent to him by God. He says this, "I feel like God sent me. God put on my heart, what's your purpose? I was looking at all these things, preachers and different people talking about purpose, because I realized purpose is something deep. Have I really found my purpose? I know I'm making money and I'm successful and I'm changing the game, but is that my purpose? And then I really prayed on it, and God told me, your purpose is to play a part in saving the..."
However, they purportedly mentioned Aaron's name to indicate that perhaps more people were aware of the issue, but were too scared to speak up. This moment shocked people online, with some claiming that Aaron's stories were disregarded when he was alive. Now, however, it appears that some of his statements are being taken more seriously in the courtroom, where tensions were high. When Dylan's attorneys arrived to fight, his lead attorney informed the judge that the government was utilizing old tales and media rumors to paint Dylan as guilty, calling the entire case unjust.
With the first day of testimony in Sean Diddy Combs' federal crimes trial. After seating a jury of 8 men and 4 women, the prosecution delivered its opening statement, and they came out swinging. Prosecutor Emily Johnson said the public knew Diddy as a larger-than-life business mogul, but behind the scenes he was forcing women into sex using violence and drugs to keep them in line. She said Combs had an inner circle that helped him commit sex crimes, drug crimes, other crimes, things like arson and kidnapping. And then came the graphic details from what we now know are called the freak-offs, where Diddy allegedly recorded sexual encounters that he'd arranged between paid escorts and his alleged victims, including his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. When it was the defense's turn, they didn't deny Diddy's temper. They said, yes, he can be violent. They admitted that. Remember, that's not what he's on trial for. They said, yes, he's got anger issues, and his actions might warrant domestic violence charges. It was clever that they said that. But trafficking and racketeering, again, that's what the federal case is about. The defense says those don't apply. And all that freak-off sex, according to the defense, they say it was consensual. They said that Diddy's love of baby oil, and this was actually a quote, they said the love of baby oil was not a federal crime. Cassie Ventura did not take the stand today. She is expected to be there tomorrow, and she better soon. This is another very interesting part of all of this. She is about to give birth to her third child any minute now, and she's about to get on the witness stand, about to have a baby. Another twist. 2 witnesses were called today, including a former security officer at the hotel, where Diddy is seen on video attacking Ventura brutally.